Hello and welcome to Top Performing Native Plants for Containers, a closer look. We're so excited to be talking about containers again and talking about native plants in containers. It's something that we get so many questions about and so many people wanting to use any little bit of space they have to fill it with our gorgeous native plants and provide ecosystem value and see how those pollinator visitors come and visit them. I'm Lexi from Saguenay Native Plant Community and I'm here with Kathy.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
So whether you have 10 acres or you just have a tiny little patio in the middle of a city, you can help restore our ecosystem with native plants in containers. Every single plant counts. And what we're going to show you this evening is, I think we've got a list of over 20 plants that are going to do well in the containers. And we're going to talk a little bit about just the structure of how many plants you can get in there and the types of containers to look for and get your setup going. So there's still time this season to start some containers and get them out onto your balcony or your patio.
A few weeks ago, we had a guest, Jeremie Fant from the Chicago Botanic Garden, and he has researched growing native plants in containers for 15 years. And we were able to take the findings of his research to show which native plants are the best. And he divided it into ones that are the top performers, and then there was good performers, and then there was, mixed performers, and then the poor performers. We're keeping it to the top performers tonight. So these are the plants that he has found over 15 years of the top performers, not only in regards to doing well in the container for a season, but coming up in the containers year after year to give you a garden within your containers. And it's just really, he shockingly good success over 15 years. So if you want to look at, if you haven't seen his video with us, check out on our channel for container gardening with native plants, 10 plants for urban spaces. That one is with Jeremie Fant, the scientist at the Chicago Botanic Garden that actually did all the research. So you can see him, you can see how he did his research, what his containers looked like, and so on. We had so much interest in that, and we've had so many people ask us over the years, do any of these native plants do well in containers? I live in a condo, I live in an apartment. And we were always kind of hesitant to answer because we've heard that some do, but we weren't sure. But then when we saw Jeremie's research, we're like, okay, this is the answer that we all need. And so much was covered that night, but we thought that some of these plants that he worked with in containers are actually new to me. Some of these varieties are ones that I haven't worked with. And so we thought that it would be good to do a little bit of a deeper dive on these plants that Jeremie found are the top performers in containers. And as I said, his top performers not only look lovely and lush in containers, so you're going to have beauty this year, but the key is they're going to come up every year. These guys have been proven to be tried and true and come up year by year in those containers. Not only are you going to be creating ecosystem value on your patio, you're also not going to have to spend money every year or do work every year to replant those containers. So it's really a win-win. Before I go back to Lexi, I'm just going to ask you to please like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. It really helps out our channel and helps us be found by more people. And I also want to mention that if any of you are interested, we now have a channel membership, and we do one live stream per month just for members to give all of our members a chance to personally ask us their gardening questions, whether they be general questions about plants or designing with natives, or very specific questions about issues or suggestions they're looking for with their own native plant gardening and landscaping projects. So just wanted to put a shout out there for that. And back to Lexi.
All right, so like Kathy said, we're going to be looking at the top performers that Jeremie Fant found, and we're actually going to be sharing a spreadsheet link to in the comments after our live stream that highlights all of, oh, sorry, there's a fly today. That
It's
highlights all.
because of the pretty flowers behind you.
That's right, I'm attracting the bugs even inside of my computer. I actually rescued a moth last night from inside. That just warmed my heart. I love moths.
I do.
It's always a shame when they find their way in, they're looking at all the lights. Anyways, back to container gardening. Um, some of the cool things about container gardening, I was actually building a container yesterday based on these suggestions and this research. And I just kept thinking there's so many cool aspects to these containers. Like the first thing is you can move them around. They may be heavy once the dirt is inside, but like you could potentially move them around to different locations. The other thing is that it really brings the pollinators close to you. So let's say you have them on a patio, you can get right up close to them with a chair and just sit there and you're going to have those visitors. So it really is great watching opportunity with those containers. And then the other thing is just privacy screen. We know that some of these native plants can get so tall. And the way that we're thinking about designing these containers with a thriller in the middle and some grasses to support them, and then maybe some spillers that go over the edges, that can make an instant little prairie that can block you out from your neighbors on your porch or your patio or your deck. So really instant privacy screen and all of the benefits and seeing those beautiful creatures come and visit you too.
Think of, like you said, it brings the pollinators up close. Think of the cool video we could get sitting on a patio with the containers right there. You could just sit on your patio chair and take great video of pollinators
Oh, yeah. I'm super excited about that. This is a game
with
changer.
a pina colada.
Yeah. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is cylindrical blazing star Liatris cylindracea. So this one, I don't think, do we have the height on this one? No, this is the shortest of the Liatris. I think this one only gets to about 2 feet tall. Is that right, Kathy?
12 inches.
Oh, 12 inches tall. Okay. Oh, there it
This is
says
a
it right
little
there.
guy. This is a little guy.
Yeah, and the flowers are kind of a different shape too. So this could be something that you could put like at the front of the container and then support it, maybe with some thrillers right behind it and then some grasses kind of to the side. But since Liatris is so stunning and so beautiful, it would be great front and center. So again, think about the combinations of the colors that you might want to put together in your garden or in your container. And this one's going to bloom July through October. So the Liatris is just spectacular in terms of their blooming season. And this one is super drought tolerant. So if you want to have a container in a super hot, dry, sunny place, which a lot of patios and decks are hot and dry, this would be a great choice. And it is a host plant for many species. So here you can see that it's the host plant for the Liatris borer moth, and the monarch butterfly also loves this plant for its nectar resources. So again, this is just great ecosystem value. It's kind of smack dab in the center of our country and of Canada, but wonderful, wonderful plant, beautiful color. And you could also try some other species of Liatris as well. I believe there are other ones on his list that also did pretty well, but this one's nice because it's so short and could be that front and center plant in your container.
Cleft Phlox. This would be a good spiller. This is a nice spreading, cascading phlox. This we were selling at our plant sale this year, and this plant is new to me. I have not grown, I've grown woodland phlox and I've grown prairie phlox. I have not yet grown cleft phlox, Phlox bifida, but look at, I mean, it is really gorgeous and it stays short. So this could be that one that's like in the front that's cascading over to the side. And I can see why, one reason why it probably can do really well in containers is containers are going to dry out faster than your ground soil. And this really likes dry soil. So it's a very drought tolerant plant, likes full to part sun, attracts many, many pollinators. This one will bloom in April and May. So you want to think about that when you're planning your containers. And next presentation, we're going to give you some ideas. That's going to be about planning your containers. Like what are some of the best choices for the thrillers, fillers, and spillers. That'll make more sense to you after next time. But designing these containers and actually give you some combinations that would work well in containers. So that watch for our next video. That will be our next live stream. We'll be going over that. But you want to like try to work with plants so that you get some interest in every season. Like this one is going to be blooming in April and May, so you kind of have your spring covered. So on your other flowering ones, try to go with ones that are blooming more in the summer or one that's going to bloom in the fall so that your container is giving you color all season. Cleft Phlox is hardy in zones 4 to 8. It prefers a sandy or rocky soil. Again, that's another reason why it probably does really well in containers, because we don't have heavy clay in containers. And this species of phlox is becoming rare and hard and very, very, I mean, all of our native plants are becoming hard to find in the wild, but this one is really becoming rare and disappearing from much of its range. And I do want to just mention with this, that with the hardiness zones, we say zone 4 to 8. Now, what I had always heard in the past is to overwinter well in a container, because people are watching this from all different parts of the country. In order to do well in a container, the plant should be hardy to a zone colder than you're in, because the pots or the containers, it's going to freeze more or get colder. So all of these did really well in Jeremie's research. But Jeremie is here in the Chicago area in actually a zone 6, and the western suburbs are at zone 5B. So that makes sense. Hardy in zones 4 to 8. So a lot of these plants are at least a zone colder. So just keep that in mind wherever you are, that you want to try to use plants that are a zone that can tolerate a zone colder than you live in, I think is a good rule of thumb to estimate. Cleft Phlox, you can see here, it's got a pretty small native range for our native plants. Mostly just native to the Midwest. And I can't believe I've never seen it. I mean, it's native here, but again, it's getting like really hard to find. And it is the host plant for many species, including some new ones to me, the spotted straw moth. Have you ever seen the spotted straw moth, Lexi?
A brown moth landed on my shoe yesterday, but it was too fast. I couldn't see it, but it was light in color, so who knows? Maybe it was.
And the olive arches moth are just a couple that like our native phloxes.
And look at those yellow and orange sections on the map. That just shows,
Mm,
and this was 2014 when this map was done. So that just shows how rare it's becoming and that it is endangered. So imagine the good you can do just planting it in your container. It's so cool.
really.
Silky Aster. So this is one I want to try too now in a container because this container gardening is actually a little addictive. We know native plants are addictive, but the containers, it's like, oh, well, what kind of combinations could I do? I don't know. Anyways, this one is a shorter aster and it's not an aggressive aster. So it does like full to part sun and has that beautiful purple color that we're familiar with like our New England aster. Again, it likes dry soil, so no surprise there that this is going to do great in a container. And it also has some interesting foliage. So it's kind of silvery green. It looks a little bit darker than our other asters. And this is so important because it's a keystone species in Illinois. And that means that this plant supports a multitude of wildlife. And that is why it's called a keystone, is because it's just so critical as a pillar of our ecosystem. This is a late fall bloomer, so September and October. This is going to be blooming for you when everything else is done blooming for the season. And this is going to provide those late season nectar resources for our monarchs who are traveling south. And it is a pollinator magnet and also a host plant. So it is a host for the beautiful pearl crescent and silvery checker spot butterflies, which look very, very similar. So you have to be very quick to tell these apart if they land on your silky aster. But you can just see it's actually on an aster here, the pearl crescent in this photo. It's so nice when we can find a picture where they're paired with a plant that they just absolutely love. And here's our native range. It's native to the central US up into Canada and super important plant, and you can't go wrong with this one. This one would be, again, good for the front part of a container or kind of a spiller too.
How perfect this plant is for a fall blooming in a container, only getting to be 1 foot tall.
Perfect. This with some goldenrod and some grasses. Oh, amazing.
Amazing. That's another thing you could do. You could either like kind of, well, we'll get to this next time, but you could do like you could either like mix them in a container, or if you want to be fancy and kind of switch your containers out that are the most prominent on your patio, you could have a spring container and a fall container. You could also have a whole container for a season so you can get like a big show at
N-
once.
Now I even want front door containers. I want some of those super tall containers and I want front door containers. Like I've always wanted grasses right by the front door.
They
But
look pretty. That's a good idea.
right? Wouldn't that be great?
That's
See,
a good
we're hooked already. This is too much fun.
idea. Okay, partridge pea. This is a plant that I'm trying this year for the first time. Really excited about it. It's such a lovely plant. Such a unique plant. The flowers almost, at least when I see it in pictures, they almost have a little bit of an orchid look to me. Do you agree? They to me they're just very unique with that foliage. But partridge pea is supposed to do very well in containers. This gets to be this likes full to part sun, medium to dry soil, and this will grow to 2 feet tall. So this would also be good as a filler. Um, this is actually an annual that self seeds itself. And so it's not going to come back on the same roots every year, but don't worry, you're going to get self seeding. So it's going to come up in your container again each year. It blooms July, August, and September, and it can actually even bloom into October. So this is a late bloomer, and it blooms for a long time once it starts blooming. It's in the pea family, so it is a nitrogen fixer. So if you put this in your container, or the ground for that matter, but if you put it in your container, nitrogen fixer plants actually take nitrogen from the air and deliver it to the soil. So, and that helps the rest of the plants. So it's actually, plants will do better when planted near a nitrogen fixer. So this is a really nice plant, and all the plants in the pea family do that. Attractive fall seed pods, a favorite of pollinators. It is a larval host plant. It's hardy in zones 4 to 9. And our winter birds, our cute little winter birds, love the seeds of this plant to help them sustain themselves in the winter. And here you can see the nice big native range of this plant. It's got a nice, hardy, robust native range in the eastern and central US. And it's a host plant for many species of butterfly, including this orange sulfur butterfly.
Now, did you say yours came back already? Did it self-seed or you just planted it this
I just
year?
planted it this year, but it hasn't flowered for me yet, but I'm sure it will.
Oh, cool. Well, so yeah, we can't wait until next year and see what happens to it.
I can get some seeds for you too this fall.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to try them. Oh, this one. I planted this in my container and I'm super excited to see this because I Haven't had this in a garden before. So this is spotted bee balm, Monarda punctata. There's several different types of Monarda. This one grows only to 2 feet tall and has this super cool layered flower that just looks extremely exotic. And it likes full to part sun. It's also known as horsemint, right, Kathy?
Yeah.
So this one's also horse mint. It is definitely more drought and heat tolerant. So with all these heat waves that we've been having, this is going to be a great plant for that. This is a mid to late summer bloomer, July, August, and September. Hardy in zones 3 to 9. It is also a larval host plant, very attractive to pollinators. So any of these Monardas, you will always find them loaded with bees and beetles and maybe a hummingbird's going to come and visit and definitely the butterflies. So they really are going to put on a show for you if they're put into your containers. And they're deer and rabbit resistant. Monardas are in the mint family and deer and rabbits do not like mint. So here's our native range, pretty good coverage here of most of the country, which is pretty awesome. It is a host plant to several very cool butterflies and this gray marble moth that looks like a flying rock. But the raspberry pyrosta butterfly, it is the host plant for this cool butterfly. And you can't go wrong with some Monarda. The smell and the creatures that it attracts is just super cool.
Slender Beardtongue. This is another new one for me that I have not grown. I've grown a couple species of Beardtongue or a couple species of Penstemon, but this is one that I have not worked with. Have you, Lexi, worked with this one yet?
No, I just planted some calico beard tongue, but I haven't heard of this one before. That
So
was the
this one's
coolest thing
kind of
about,
exciting.
yeah, the coolest thing about his list is that there are all these plants that we hadn't heard of
I
before.
know, it's fun. It's like this whole new world opening up of all these new plant stuff. Like, oh, I want to try this now. Like here. And just looking at this, you could see how pretty that would be filling in a pot with other plants coming up around it, just like really filling in with pops of purple coming up throughout the pot, you know?
And none of the other penstemons are this deep in color. I think they're
No,
typically like white, little bit of pink, lavender, but not this deep of a color.
no. I'm really a fan of this plant now. So slender beard tongue grows to 2 feet tall in full to part sun, dry soil. This is a very drought tolerant penstemon, probably why it does so well in containers. Of course, like all penstemon, it's loved by pollinators. I'm sure our bumblebees are just crazy about this, like they are the other penstemons. And it's very successful at attracting hummingbirds to those tubular flowers. Also, it's a larval host plant, and this plant will bloom in May, June, and July, and it's hardy in zones 3 to 6. So there we can see the native range, and this is really native to the north central US, but it kind of juts down into part of the southwest. So I think this is a little bit of an unusual native range. I don't really understand the connection between the climates or the terrain in these places, but oh well, what do I know?
Yeah, and the coolest thing about the penstemons is that early bloom season. And Keith Sikora was talking about this at the plant sale, that he loves growing penstemon because it's blooming before all of those great summer or showy flowers are blooming. So you get this nice bloom period in between your ephemerals and the summer bloomers, May, June, July, you'll get penstemon will be blooming and attracting all the pollinators.
It is a host plant for many species, including this Baltimore. It's a host plant for many checker spot species, butterflies, and there's a number of different checker spots. And one of those types of checker spots is our Baltimore checker spot, which you see here on the slide. But you can also look behind Lexi's head because she just happens to have one hanging by her head.
Yeah, that was an accident. Ooh, I got another aster. So aromatic aster. This one is so popular. I think this was super popular at our plant sale too. It grows to 2 feet tall, so it's on the shorter side. And I think a lot of people like this one because, New England aster can get up to 5 feet tall, sometimes even taller than that. So people like these shorter ones that are a little bit more mounded and kind of, or you can control them a little bit more. So this one again likes full sun and dry soil, late season bloomer, August to November. And again, anything, this aster is a keystone species. So most of our asters would fall into that category. One of the last species to bloom. And of course, is a pollinator magnet. Look at that beautiful bumblebee on that flower. And it is also a larval host plant. So typically the keystone species are. So let's take a look at who needs this plant to survive. So again, we've got the silvery checker spot butterfly that definitely needs the aster to keep its life cycle going. And this is native to the central and the eastern US.
Royal catchfly. You guys have seen this if you watched our presentation about native plants for hummingbirds. Of course, hummingbirds are going to be very attracted to those bright red flowers. So if you love hummingbirds, this is a great plant for you to put in some of your containers because this would be really cool. Imagine this paired with some of those purples like that Penstemon. How gorgeous.
You're just going to make a hummingbird box, aren't you?
Yeah, now we got a hummingbird box. I mean, we could really go to town on this. A hummingbird box, a spring box, a fall box. This is a whole new world opening up to us, Lexi.
It's super exciting. There's so many things to experiment with. It's so cool.
So our royal catchfly grows 2 to 4 feet tall. So this could be a filler, but this could also be the thriller coming up the center of the pot. This nice, tall, erect, red blooming thing that can get up to 2 feet tall. I do have this in the ground in my garden, and I've had it in for a few years, and for me it only gets to be maybe 2.5 feet tall. But I suppose if it's in like super ideal, environment or something, it can get to 4 feet tall. But that's not been my experience. Mine has been more like 2.5 feet tall. It likes full sun, medium soil, and it blooms in July and August. So that's a really great time because that's blooming after the springs, before the fall. So this is a nice interim pop of color. Hardy in zones 4 to 9, and it's attracted to butterflies, loved by hummingbirds. It's native in the central US, and this is another plant that is becoming very rare and really rare, not seen too much in the wild anymore, which is obviously very sad. It's got this unusual true red color, which is very unusual for native plants. So this is you know, how often do you see pops of red? We have our cardinal flower, we have this, and we have a little bit of a more subdued red in our native columbine, but that's about it for red, right? In our native plants.
Yep, I think that's about it.
So here's the native range of the royal catchfly, and this is a pretty depressing map because most of the it's if the light green is counties that are saying that it is present, it's pretty much just in southern Missouri. And most of its native range, it seems to be very much disappearing. And where we are, it's yellow, so that means it's really disappearing, right, Lexi?
Well, that just sold it for me, Kathy. Now we've got to get another container and we got to start one with Royal Catchfly.
I think I know where you're going again this weekend. Okay.
Just gonna spend all the money on containers.
So this is native, as we said, to the central and southeastern US. It is the larval host plant for many butterfly species. and it is absolutely loved by the black swallowtail butterfly. And I just love that butterfly. I think it looks so cool. So this is a plant that really is going to serve a lot of our beloved insect creatures, our beloved flying pollinator friends.
Oh, anise hyssop. So this one is so easy to grow in the garden. It's so easy to grow from seed. So it's kind of no surprise that it would be easy to grow in containers. I would suspect, though, that this one is going to do really well with some grasses supporting it. Until this plant is really established in the ground, it could potentially need some support. So I currently have one in the garden that is absolutely fine without anything around it, but I think, a little baby plant might need something to help hold it up. So maybe like some porcupine grass or something else to go with this. But we'll talk about that in our combinations. So this one gets to 3 feet tall. I've seen Anna's hyssop get taller than that, though. What do you think, Kathy?
I have. I have personally had Anise hyssop that was 4 feet tall.
Yeah, I think that would be, if it's happy, you maybe would expect it to get a little bit taller. So it definitely likes full to part sun and again, medium to dry soil. Super duper long blooming from June through September. Mine is just starting to bloom right now. Pollinator hotspot. So each of these little spires is filled with little tiny florets and flowers that the insects go into and they just adore it. And then if you rub the leaves in your fingers, you're going to get this beautiful anise smell. It's just absolutely delicious smelling, and you can make tea with it. And it is deer and rabbit resistant because they do not like that smell of the anise. And here again, it's native to the north central US. So this is interesting. This, along with that slender beardtongue, are both kind of a similar native range up to the northern part of the country. And it's a host plant for this super cool moth, the Radcliffe dagger moth. Where do they come up with these names, Kathy?
That almost sounds like some name like from Wuthering Heights or something. Radcliffe's dagger moth. I don't know.
So
It has an
dramatic.
old-fashioned sound. Lord Radcliffe.
I love it. That's so cool. So yeah, get some of this into your container and you might have Radcliffe, Lord Radcliffe visiting you.
Black-eyed Susan, this is just a plant that's just it's great in the ground, it's great in containers. This is just a full service plant that doesn't disappoint and it's easy and spectacular. So the Black-eyed Susan, Rudbeckia hirta, as well as other species of Rudbeckia like your showy Black-eyed Susan and your what's the one that you really like, Lexi?
I like sweet black-eyed
Sweet
Susan.
black-eyed Susan. Okay,
Yeah.
so all of these would do well in containers and give you that bright poppy yellow. The cool thing about this one and I believe showy black-eyed Susan, they're both a little bit shorter black-eyed Susans, so they'll stay to about 2 feet tall. Some of the other Rudbeckias are a little bit taller. It likes full to part sun. I mean, how can you not look at a photo of this plant and not smile?
You just can't. This is a smile in a flower.
It's a smile and a flower. Yes. It likes moist to medium dry soil. This also blooms a very long time, June through October. It is a biennial, which means it will only it seeds itself each year. Correct? So it's not an annual. It comes back a second year and then seeds itself. Is that what a biennial is?
Yeah, so if you plant one, it's usually going to come back in the same place, but then it might just kind of spread around a little bit too. So,
Right.
it's not like it'll go away, but
But
it
it's
just
pretty much coming up new each year from new seedlings.
right, exactly.
Birds love, and I remember Jeremy saying that our self-seeding, more annual type uh, natives are some of the ones that seemed to have done the best in containers. Birds love the seed heads of this. It's hardy in zones 3 to 9. This is an important pollinator plant, a very easy to grow plant, and of course, very importantly, it's a larval host plant. I love that native range. Do you remember what that like kind of turquoise color means, Lexi?
I think that means introduced in the county.
Okay. But what an awesome native range. This really, anybody in the country can plant this in containers and be helping their local ecosystem. So native to the entire US, and it again a host plant for many species, including the checker spot, the silvery checker spot butterfly, and the wavy lined emerald moth. We like to get him into our presentations when we can.
Nodding wild onion. So you cannot go wrong with this plant. It's so elegant. Again, it likes medium wet to medium dry soil and full apart sun, but it's a little bit on the shorter side, so 18 inches tall, and it's a very slender plant. So you could put a couple of these in a container along with some other plants and have this really beautiful, delicate flower kind of nods over. That's why it's called nodding wild onion. And the creatures just love getting into these flowers and they're kind of hanging upside down, accessing the pollen and the nectar. So it says designed for pollinators. I mean, it's so true. They just really love this plant. It is very easy to grow and it is also deer and rabbit resistant because it's from the onion family.
I love this photo of the bumblebee because you can see so well that pollen basket on the side of her leg.
It's huge.
It's huge, just packed with pollen. So if you ever see a bumblebee that has that big pollen basket filled with pollen, you know that that's a queen. Only the queens collect pollen and bring it back to the nest for the babies.
And here we have an interesting map, and I wonder if this map has changed at all within the last, they need to reissue their map soon, Bonap, but this one again is 2014, and the pink is where some counties have listed it as a noxious weed, I believe. So again, this in the fight for native plants, this can be some of the things that we're up against, which is really odd to me because this is not an aggressive plant
No.
at all.
Well, I mean, I suppose in those areas, maybe there's something unusual that would make it, but we're looking at northwestern Indiana. That is, a very similar landscape and, to our area. And I can't picture it because I have never had a nodding wild onion seed itself or spread anywhere.
No, they are just such a well-behaved plant. They're great in the home landscape. So yeah, this map doesn't make sense to us at
That is
all.
really odd. That is very odd.
So yeah, maybe we need to just ask them why this is.
I
But
think you need to call Bone App tomorrow.
yeah, call and find out why these areas are pink. But think about milkweed. Like milkweed was considered a weed, and look where that got us. So hopefully these things are being fixed. Um,
Well, and the thing is like with milkweed got a bad rap because of common milkweed and um how robustly it can seed itself and spread. And I'm not denying that that is true. It can. Um, and so we just got rid of milkweed altogether and largely killed off monarch butterflies because of it. But there are so many species of milkweed that the monarch butterflies happily use that aren't at all aggressive. So it just like all of these different species got a bad name just because one variety is aggressive. You know what I mean? And so it was just a lot of misinformation.
yeah,
Or
the agriculture industry is super interesting. Um, So, anyways, on a happier note, the nodding wild onion is a host plant for the hair streak butterflies, including this really dainty, tiny little gray hair streak butterfly. So some of these little tiny, tiny butterflies are just so awesome to see. And if you plant nodding wild onion, they will probably come and visit you too.
This one excites me. I would love to have this as a thriller in a container. I tried planting this in the ground once, and it just did not do well for me. But I don't think I had it in a full enough sun place. And this was one of Jeremie's top performers. So I'm really kind of excited to try this in a container because it's such a unique flower. And it's one that's very unique and becoming very rare in its range. So I would love to try this. So this grows to 4 feet tall. Amazing thriller in the center of a container. It likes full sun, wet soil. So if you have this in, again, when we're paying attention to some good combinations, if you have something that likes, moist to medium dry soil, you could probably plant that with another plant that likes dry soil, but you wouldn't want to put this in with plants that like dry soil. Those would not be real conducive because this one is going to want you to certainly be watering that that container daily. It resembles cotton candy. It produces pollen, but not nectar, and it's a great pollen source for pollinators. Um, it is unique and rare throughout its range, and it blooms June through August, hardy zones 4 to 7, and a larval host plant. There's the native. Oh, that's a depressing map.
Another one.
Man, we're seeing more depressing maps tonight of plants that are really becoming pretty endangered. And to know that these can do well in containers, that's like a mission to get some of these endangered plants back in our containers.
Yeah, and especially if we think about, so many people living in urban areas where they might not have a garden, this just opens up a whole world of possibilities where, anybody can help our ecosystem by putting these plants in the containers and actually, you have more control. I mean, you have more control over the soil that you use. If something's not doing well in the container, fine, just pull it out. I mean, it's a lot easier dealing with something in a container than it is like the whole garden. So, I think it's going to be really fascinating to see with our tests of all these containers and following Jeremie's guidance and his research and really seeing what does well. But I think this one too would be great for the privacy screen. Wouldn't you want like a big pink floofy privacy screen like this?
That's true, blocking your patio. And something you said, Lexi, I mean, for so long, people, think that they can't make a difference because they live in a condo or they live in a townhome or an apartment and they just have a balcony or a patio. And to see that you could plant some containers, including some of these plants that are really becoming endangered, wow, all of a sudden now you can make a big difference with your patio.
Absolutely. And it also just makes me think like on a civic scale, if you look at like, well, we're close to downtown Chicago. If you walk
Whoops.
through, oh, the goldenrod has come out. If you walk around downtown Chicago, they're always like pulling things in and out of containers for the season. So they'll have bulbs in the spring, then they pull all of those out and then they put in some summer plants. And then they pull all of that out and then they're putting in, stuff for the fall or for Christmas. Like what if those could be native plants? I mean, there's just so many possibilities and thinking about some of the waste that is created too with just like ripping plants out of containers and just letting them die. I mean, it's kind of sad, It'd be great if things could persist for longer and actually have that ecosystem value.
Well, and like what you're saying, like some of our that we're going to be getting to in a minute, some of the grasses that do well in containers, you know, you leave those grasses up in the container all winter and you'll have like the bushy and then if you want and then you could add like a few red twigs or something and boom, you have a Christmas decoration, a winter decoration.
And an eco-friendly one, not one that has some of those styrofoam berries on
Right.
some spray painted sticks. Let's put some red dogwood sticks in there with some little blue stem that's faded back already for the fall. So there's nothing more beautiful than our grasses, our native grasses in the fall. I'm just kind of obsessed with them. Like the colors are just extraordinary. The seed heads are beautiful and they're providing, cover and food for our birds in the winter. So I don't know, it's a lot to think about, and it starts with us, the homeowner trying to make a difference and
I'm
putting it in our landscape.
visualizing in your new house and the neighbors, now you're gonna have like containers just lining your driveway.
Oh, it's
You're
gonna be
gonna
all
have like
containers.
40 containers lining your driveway.
It's an experiment.
She's doing research.
That's right.
All right, like Lexi said earlier. Oh, this is yours. I did the other one.
Oh, okay. I'll do
Because you
goldenrod.
were talking about you wanted a goldenrod with those asters.
Oh, definitely. And this one, again, our goldenrods are keystone species. This one I have not heard of, Riddell's goldenrod. So it grows to 3 feet tall. I just planted some blue stem goldenrod and some elm leaf goldenrod the other day. I mean, they're just stunning, stunning plants. Like everybody loves them. I was asking people at the plant sale, what plant would you like to be if you could be at a native plant? So many people told me they wanted to be goldenrod, and I just thought it was so cool that it was a common thread between so many people. Maybe it's because it is a magnet for pollinators. People want to be magnetic like this amazing goldenrod. So the color is fantastic. Seeing that pop of color late in the season from August through October is always thrilling. And this combination with these native purples is just phenomenal. So again, being a keystone species, it's a larval host plant, but our birds also love these seeds in the winter. It is non-aggressive. Really, the only super aggressive species of goldenrod is going to be your Canada goldenrod, which gets super tall. But again, this one is not, and it's only 3 feet tall, and it's hardy in zones 3 to 7, native to the upper Midwest. So this must like it cold if it's hardy in zones 3 to 7.
Yes.
Okay, so here's our native range, and you can see that it's popping up into Canada. We do have a couple of yellow and orange spots. Why are we getting these this evening, Kathy? Um, it is a host plant for more than 120 species of moths, including the wavy-lined emerald moth and the dart moth. So if you want to try and experiment and have one of those evenings out in your garden where you put up a white sheet and see how many moths you can attract to it. Maybe you can try some Riddell's goldenrod in a container, and that'll help the number of moths that you're gonna see. I keep putting that on our list to do, Kathy. We're gonna have a camp out night where we put a sheet up in the backyard and we're
That
gonna
would be
look at.
fun.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spotted Joe-Pye weed. What a thriller this would be in the middle of your pot. And I'm telling you, this may sound weird that something that grows to be 5 feet tall does well in a container. I mean, you would think it's going to need more root room than that, but this was one of Jeremie's, his research showed that this is a top performer. So think of how cool that would look in a container. This is how tall it gets in the ground. It may not get that tall in a container. I mean, being in a container might stunt the growth a little bit, I'm thinking. We didn't discuss that, on some of these plants. So maybe it's only going to get to be 3 to 4 feet tall, but what a cool thriller this would be. And again, giving you a lot of privacy, and you could fill those containers with all different sizes of plants and just have this wall of color and foliage and beauty around you, as you said. It likes full to part sun, medium to wet soil, and this will bloom July through September. Of course, our Joe-Pye weeds are butterfly magnets, and the birds love their seeds in the winter. This is a larval host plant for many species, and it is hardy in zones 3 to 8, and it is native to the northern half of the US. and part of the Southwest. It's the larval host plant to more than 40 species, including the ruby tiger moth and the three-lined emerald moth.
So for your pink
Some new ones.
person, the
Pardon?
pink person could put in the spotted Joe-Pye weed and the queen of the prairie, and you get all this pink in a container.
There's all these ways that you could customize containers to you.
Yeah, I mean that would be the Barbie container for your Barbie person. This is bringing out a whole nother side of us, Kathy. Woodland phlox. So Phlox divaricata. So I guess this would have to be in a shaded box. We would only want to mix this with species that really like the shade. And I don't think we've covered too many other ones so far that like the shade. I think Columbine's coming up. But this is typically a trailing ground cover and only gets to about 12 inches tall. And we love this plant for the shade because it's just really, really beautiful and blooms early, April, May, and June. It's not too picky with the soil, just like medium soil, but it definitely is a shade-loving species. It's hardy in zones 3 to 8 and native to the eastern U.S. It is a valuable nectar source early in the spring. Even hummingbirds love it, and it's a larval host plant too. So there's a nice healthy map with lots of green, and it's native to the eastern US and the central US. And it is also a larval host plant as well for the gorgeous black swallowtail. And again, here's our little friend, the gray hair streak again.
Wild ginger, here's another shade one. So this would maybe be a lower container with more trailing plants in it and maybe just one taller plant mixed in with them, but more of a trailing container with some wild ginger and some phlox. So wild ginger is an amazing trailing ground cover plant with really pretty heart-shaped leaves. When I just think of, and there's no reason, well, I guess, yeah, I don't think it would work well to add these kind of things with annuals. Because I was going to say people go and plant those sweet potato vines all the time. Well, why have sweet potato vines when you could have wild ginger? But you probably shouldn't plant annuals and native plants in the same pot because those annuals are going to dry out much faster and need more water, and that might end up being too much water for some of these these native plants that prefer it more on the dry side. So I personally would keep it just straight natives. But this likes full shade, medium to dry soil, and it blooms April to June. It does have some inconspicuous flowers on the underneath side of the leaves that you really don't see. But its main attraction is its beautiful heart-shaped foliage. It's hardy and the fact that it makes an amazing ground cover and an amazing trailing plant. And again, when you're putting it in the ground, it's doing such a good job being a ground cover and preventing weeds. It keeps its foliage throughout the season, and it too is a larval host plant. It's native to the eastern U.S. There we can see. And it is the larval host plant for the pipevine swallowtail butterfly.
This I always think is one of the hardest plants to find, and it just sells out so quickly. So if you do see it and you want it, like you should probably buy it right away and not wait. It is one of the harder plants to grow. Like I think growing it from seed would be pretty difficult. Dividing and propagating it that way, I think is typically how it's done. So it's just such a cool plant, and it's a favorite of people who are into native landscaping because it just looks so beautiful.
It looks so beautiful, like in a shady area under a tree to just have a carpet of that, and then you don't have to pull weeds. It's wonderful.
Yep,
But now we want to see it in containers.
exactly. Oh, and I wanted to buy this for my container, but they were sold out at the little nursery I went to this weekend. So this is just such a beautiful little grass. Side oats grandma. It has nothing to do with your grandma. I don't know why it's called that. But it only gets to 2 feet
Remember, we
tall.
learned from Jeremy, and it's on his sheet that grasses and sedges are referred to as, is it graminoids or something?
Oh yeah, graminoid. Okay, you're right.
Graminoids.
Okay, so now we know why it's called grandma. It's a shortened version of graminoid, I guess. Um, this is a warm season grass, so it means it's going to be growing actively in the summer, and it gets some really cool little flowers that are actually red and purple. So the ones that we see here in this picture have kind of dried back, and they're going to be turning into the seed heads. But it is just so elegant, and it's got this arching effect and those little flowers. It's just spectacular when it's blooming, post blooming, anytime. It's just gorgeous. So it's going to bloom in August, September. Loves full to part sun. Most of our grasses are going to like full sun, medium to dry soil. It's also a larval host plant, and it's a valuable seed source for the birds and hardy through most of the U.S. Oh, we just in the chat, Knievel tells us that it's from the ancient Greek word for a type of grass. Wow, we really learned something today, Kathy.
This is,
Graminoid.
yeah, this is an eye-opening presentation.
Yes.
See, we're still learning. Learning keeps you young.
It does. You can't stop learning and exploring. Okay, so look at this huge native range. This is so exciting when we see this. And most of the US, we've only got a few little yellow spots in there, but lots and lots of bright green. It's also a host plant for these little skipper butterflies, these tiny little guys. This is called peck skipper. And, they are just tiny and they will zoom around super fast. But we definitely want to give them the plants that they need to support them.
Another one, and you can't say enough about prairie dropseed. This just has container filler written all over it. And imagine this like dry, or the last one, dry in the winter, just, leave it there, leave it brown, leave it cascading in your container, and then add, like you said, the red twigs from the red twig dogwoods, and you have your outdoor porch holiday decoration. But prairie dropseed, this is just an awesome grass. And this is one grass that has crossed over and gotten some popularity in the uh, quote unquote regular horticulture market. You sometimes will see this in garden centers because there's just it's just an awesome grass, and there's no reason you would want to cultivate this thing because it's great the way it is. This grows to 2 feet tall in full to part sun, medium to dry soil. This little mop head prairie drop seed will bloom August through October, so it only gets to be 2 feet tall, the cascading foliage, but then it will shoot up taller seed heads in August through October that have a very pleasant scent to them. And it's hardy in zones 3 to 9. Again, a great landscape grass and a great container grass. Seeds provide very important food for birds. So imagine you're looking out on your patio on a winter day and you see birds hopping in your containers. You're not going to see that after you pull your geraniums out, right?
Nope.
And it's native to much of the eastern US, and it too is a larval host plant. So there we go, native to most of the eastern US and a lot of the central US. I'm surprisingly, I do see a lot of yellow on here, which is not making me happy, but we got to get more of this prairie dropseed because it's a really great landscape grass, and it's also the larval host plant for some endangered species of moths, including the powshake skipperling and the Dakota skipper. So these guys are endangered, so we need to get prairie dropseed out there for them.
And I just planted 4 of these. So I had 2 containers I was working on, and I put 2 prairie drop seed in each one. And like you said, Kathy, it's just spectacular as a filler. I think it's going to look really, really cool.
I'm excited about the containers.
Me
Mm.
too. Oh, and this one I planted as well. So I only put one in because I've never seen this before, but this is June grass. It only grows to 2 feet tall, and apparently it's very popular on green roofs. And Jeremie talked about this in his presentation as well. But I just love the seed head,
Hmm.
and I thought, wow, this is going to look really cool with all of the forbs, and it's going to give them that structure and support that they want. Again, this likes full sun, being a grass, medium to dry soil. It's going to bloom in June and July. Hardy in zones 3 to 9, and again is a great source of seed for our birds, native to most of the US and a larval host plant too. So, wow, you get a whole lot of stuff with your June grass. So look at that native range. I like that we're getting up more into the upper northwest. Like we usually don't get a lot of plants from that area. So this is cool. It goes up that way and then all into the southwest as well. It is a host plant for, again, the skipper butterflies. They're so important. And then also this very cool Blake's tiger moth, which
Isn't
look
that
at the
pretty?
look at the fashion on that moth. It's so cool.
And these moths, they say, you rave about these pretty butterflies and you just ignore our beauty at night.
They're amazing. I just love them.
And Pennsylvania sedge. And one thing, and we'll be talking about this in our next presentation, but when we talk more about, well, not that we haven't talked about it already because we're running away with ourselves, but when we talk more about combining these things, um, he did say that it seems like the plants did the best when there was either a grass or a sedge in the plant. Because those kind of blanket the other plants during the winter. So it seems like they kind of protect them. So it does seem to be pretty important, not only for the aesthetics of the container, but also for the success of the container to add one of the grasses we talked about, or to add a sedge like this Pennsylvania sedge. This is a really adaptable plant. People actually also use it as a lawn alternative, but it's great in our containers too as a low filler, and it will cascade over the side a little bit to soften those edges of the container. And it only gets to be 8 inches tall. It will spread very slowly by rhizomes, and it likes full sun to shade. So here's one that can go in any of your containers. So this is one that you can, whether you're making a shade container or sun, this is one that's going to do well for you. It's likes medium to dry soil. It blooms in April through June. It's hardy in zones 3 to 7. This provides important seed and habitat for birds. Sedges are a favorite of our birds. I just have to tell you, I have a lot of curly styled wood sedge in an area of my garden, and it has a very similar texture to this Pennsylvania sedge, a fine texture. And it was so cool to watch the birds this spring going over and pulling the old brown last year's um, leaves or blades or whatever you want to call it of the sedges to make their nests with. They just loved it. It's like it's the perfect size for them to weave around and make their nests with. So they are a really important plant for many species, including our birds. They're very important for our birds, these sedges. It's native to the eastern US, and Pennsylvania sedge is also a larval host plant. So here we can see it's native to the eastern US. Not too much depressing yellow on here, although, I've noticed in a few slides there being a lot of yellow up in Maine. This
Oh, that's interesting.
in a few of these slides, a lot of yellow in Maine. So if anybody's watching this from Maine, we need you to get on board here. Okay, so it's a host plant for many species, including the mulberry wing skipper and the black dash skipper. Okay, some of our photo credits, some of the great photos that we found of these creatures and these plants, a lot of them coming from, thank you, from iNaturalist. And that will do it for tonight's presentation. Thank you all for joining us, and watch for our next live stream where we're going to be talking more about how to combine these plants to make some really cool containers.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Bye-bye.